to kick us off, and so I can stop talking, we would really like to know, please, in the chat, why you're interested in impact today, why you're interested in this troubleshooting session. You can add that. We'll also come around to your questions. What we've seen this morning very quickly is that we've had a discussion about the data space, about the impacts of cultural heritage, how it can contribute towards themes of social justice, democratization of culture, increasing access, representation, so many really important things. One of our goals is to increase the relevance of and the importance of cultural heritage in society, to really emphasize that message and to just keep making more impacts. And we're also here in Europeana with an impact methodology we use ourselves, the Impact Playbook. And yeah, so today's session is really about understanding, what do you need from us in terms of impacts? What sort of troubleshooting can we help you with? And I wonder if anybody would like to start. You're welcome to put your hand up or to kick us off. What do you think? I can also maybe. Sorry. Hello.
It was me actually, and I don't want to. And I'm super happy to see one of my former colleagues who's now based in Australia, Tina Macht. Welcome, Tina. So we have also Australia represented here. I haven't seen her in a very long time. And Tina, I'm super happy that you're joining us because I know you're following and you're a heritage professional for your entire professional life. But what I'm actually repeating a question that Nicole is asking and putting you in the spot here. But for you in your profession, like, do you have looking at Europeana and the Impact Playbook and measuring impact in your organization, what does it mean and how does it resonate for you? You're nodding, no, we're not doing that, or what does it mean to you?
No, not that I know of. And I think for me, that's why I'm here, to be up to date to the standards Europe has. I think there's a lot of things going on at your place we are not aware of. And yeah, so we'll see how I keep up with all. It's 10 o'clock at night, so
no, thank you.
Probably won't do the second session, but yeah, I hope everything is recorded, because I saw there's some stuff about audiovisual in other sessions, and I thought, oh, that's amazing for my colleagues. So yeah, I have to point them to that once the whole conference is finished.
Thanks so much. Sorry for putting you on the spot, but thank you for making time in your free evening to follow the conference today.
I'm very, very interested.
I think you actually just referenced something which we're finding in our analysis of our communication channels and how our messaging and our communication around impact has been shared. We're finding that most people really need that entry-level knowledge. They're like, what is it you're talking about? What is the Impact Playbook? What is this impact framework? And I wonder if that's the case for more people, is, what sort of level of information should we be giving to you? We sometimes in Europeana, we talk about phase 0. We have a 4-phase impact playbook. It takes you from impact design to impact evaluation. And actually, sometimes people are saying, well, no, we need a stage before that about talking about impact. Why? What do you mean by impact? How do we bring it into the conversations in our organization? Does that resonate with anyone? This is, I mentioned analysis of our own communication channels, but it's yeah, does that resonate with anyone? Are you struggling to know what impact means? Niels plus baby. I've seen a thumbs up.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the question you just mentioned, how to bring it up in our own organization, how to talk to people, and how to establish impact measurement besides other things like just numbers of items and stuff.
Fantastic. And have you used the playbook at all? Have you taken it to colleagues or tested it or had a look? Which is also then maybe coming to a second point, which we've heard, which is that sometimes the this whole methodology which we've created is huge, actually. And to go through this whole process to even start at phase 1 can be really like a lot. So actually we're working on an Impact Light methodology to make it even easier to bring this conversation to your colleagues, to outline why it's important to have these conversations and to get that buy-in to start walking through the process. And Niels, my colleague to my left, Maaike, will be a perfect person to talk maybe about that shift from outputs to outcomes. So instead of just talking about the numbers, to talk about that change. If I understand, Niels, that was more sort of along the lines of what you were saying, not just the numbers, but the meaning behind the numbers, what it can signal, what's that bigger change maybe? Maaike, shall I?
Yeah, Niels, I have to admit that starting with Impact, I struggled with the same thing, because it's there has been such an elaborate work done by Europeana with the 4 phases, but it's also a very easygoing, step-by-step process that you can approach, and how I approach it. For instance, for other digital leaders that we have a program for, is that I approach it with impact awareness. That's where we start. What is impact, and what is the word, and what does that mean? And then a change to a very, very simple workshop on the change pathway canvas. And that all can be done in 1.5 hours, and it's very easy. It's also something that the Impact Light a team is working on, but please see it as a step-by-step formula, and it's also getting your head around the concept of impact. And the first start is, I think, getting the same language about what is impact. And that's like a conversation you can do in your team, or you can do with like-minded people from other organizations. And that's really starting the work on impact. It's super easy, super basic, but just getting your head around the concept of impact. And the Impact Playbook phase 1 helps you with that. So that would be my advice, to start the impact awareness either in your organization or in your team. Does that in any way resonate with you? Or with anyone? Oh, Niels, yeah, you have trouble in unmuting. You have like to hold something very precious, right? Yeah.
It's okay, I can do it hands-free.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, okay. No, it's a very good suggestion, and it's good to know that people have gone down that path and have experience with it. Yeah, of course, it's always something to start and go there. And I think I was aware of the Impact Playbook, but I haven't gone through it yet. So it's something just to add to my list, I guess. And so start the conversation.
Yeah, and it can be super easy, because if you just start with pure the definition of impact and have a conversation about that, that's really light and informal, and then you can work your way to a change pathway canvas or whatever, and it's really easy to use. So I would recommend that as a first step. Is anybody else having the same issue or challenge that Niels has in your organization? How do you start up the conversation about impact? Or maybe someone else from the SG who started it and has experienced in progressing around the impact. I'm looking around, I'm sitting here with my colleagues. So you see a smile on my face because, you know, the colleagues of my SG, I've only met them online and now they're live in the same room. So happy people here.
Okay, so I can take it over from here because I was thinking about, I don't know whether you all were, I'm Maya, by the way, hi. whether you were at the conference at the opening panel discussion, and if you were not, so if you were, you will immediately know what I am thinking about. But if you were not, it was built in a way that there was a short video, a provocation, it was called, and then the panel was asked to comment. And one of the first video that was shown was about asking the right questions before finding the answer. And to me, that was an excellent starting point. And to me, this is the excellent definition, perfect definition of what the mindset of us in the cultural heritage, but actually everyone professionally involved in an initiative that has a beginning and an end. The end can be whatsoever, but to have the idea why we're doing things, and to have this mindset of being curious, and also to have a mindset that will tell you that, okay, you need to have the right the right set of questions, and they can evolve. So there was an answer in the panel saying that I don't believe in questions. Really, I very much disagree with that. So, but to me, the discussion about impact is really about understanding the value of our actions, the change that we are creating. And this is what I think Micah was saying, that the playbook, then it's a kind of a set of guidelines that can help you go through the process. But to me, the starting point is really the mindset. It's really the eagerness to understand, the will to understand what we are professionally after, what our institution is after, what our colleagues, whether we are on the same page, and the discussion that the workshops and the discussions that are offered in the playbook. And you can do it. I am a practitioner. I like the playbook, so I use it a lot in my projects. I just had a meeting about the impact assessment for a project in the break during the conference, using the methodology. So maybe not the methodology, but the guidelines from the playbook. But still, the starting point for me, just to finish this way too long intervention, is to really be on the same page with your teammates, to make everyone realize that this is important, that it's important to understand why we're doing things, why we are running different projects, maybe not projects, why we're in this initiative, in the organization that we're in, and whether we share the values that kind of drive our daily work. So I think, and this is something that the playbook can help you with. So to help you have this conversation and to help you understand what it is that you are after, and to check whether you are on the same page. Ooh, okay, thank you.
Any responses or reactions to Maya? Any thoughts? Has that triggered anything in your minds? I think for me, an important thing to say is that the playbook is an important tool to guide that conversation, like you say, Maya. And also, if you feel at the moment you don't have that support from above or below, or whoever your colleagues who need that support, you can sort of start with the playbook as easily as this. It's just a piece of paper. I don't know. Actually, no. Now all you can see is I'll have to do this way. It's a piece of paper. It's got some lines on it, and this is basically the core tool of phase one. And so basically this tool is designed to help you think through change, like Maya explains. And I wonder, has anyone used a theory of change before, anything like this in the room, or a logic model, or a log frame, or any hands? I'm gonna go maybe back to gallery. Anyone can do a little reaction. Anybody know what I'm talking about when I say logic model, theory of change? You don't have to, that's fine. Again, they are basically also just things like this. It's a way of starting. So basically, these are ways of tracking have. An echo. I'm just wondering where that's coming from. Yep. Yes, so they're just ways of tracking and starting with a really stakeholder focused, thinking about who you're trying to create impact for. That was another thing we heard in this morning's session. It's about social relevance, about making sure that you're designing for the people that you're trying to create value for the impact that you want to have in the longer term. And it sounds really simple, but we have also in our, we've been working on impact for, I think, almost 10 years now, if not exactly 10 years. It's really starting, which is the hard bit. And so we are working on a phase 0 approach, which is basically just ways to take it to your colleagues, to kick off, to think about actually what's the value of doing this. And that's been with part of the Impact Light Task Force. We've found that phase 1 and that kickoff is really the hardest thing, but we have also found the impact measurement itself. So data collection, crunching the numbers is something a lot of people don't feel confident with. And I've seen that also in some of the responses from in the chat as well. So actually measuring those numbers, actually demonstrating, using the data to demonstrate the value of your activities. Are there any questions maybe on impact measurement and data collection that we could maybe help with?
Yeah.
Hi, so my name is Matilda. I'm from National University Library in Zagreb. I have a question for group about carbon footprint today, because I was wondering, was that question meant for us, for this group to solve? Because it was really interesting to see that there isn't an exact way to count carbon footprint. So, and it's actually environmental impact, and we are, I think, focused on social impact here. So I was wondering if it's also something that we are that this group and this initiative is trying to solve. So that's it.
That is a fantastic question. So yeah, we had a question. A lot of our discussion this morning, one of the 4 provocations was on the climate, but the climate came up far more often. Thankfully, it's becoming that sort of central pillar. We're in an emergency, so we're absolutely responding to this as well in terms of our measurement methodology. I should say, full declaration, have never measured any climate sort of things before 2020. So we do have some experience recently, and also my colleagues in Europeana, some of the numbers which Harry mentioned about actually measuring the impact of our servers. For example, our servers run on green energy and they have done for some time. So actually our climate impact, if you calculate it, is lower than it could be, which is a good thing, but there's a climate impact. We found in 2020, we did, actually, no, sorry, 2019. So it's 2019. In 2019, in our conference, we started to measure the impact of people coming together. And now this was in terms of networking, in terms of, positive things, networking, and what that networking can lead to, the sort of connections you build, the projects you create, the funding you can create when you all come together, solve a problem, and the sort of more sustainable, better, impactful sector you can create, the impact of convening these people. But there's a negative impact to that, and that's the negative impact on the environment. And we calculated an average carbon footprint per person coming to the conference. 100%, can't remember what it is, but it's in the report, which is online. The next year, we then compared that to COVID had hit. So this is 2020, we had a fully online conference, and we tried to do exactly the same. In 2019, we also, it's again, these aren't perfect methodologies. There's which carbon calculator do you use? You have to do it manually. You can't just, even collecting the data was quite hard, but we got the data, and then it's actually doing the manual manipulation of that data to then come to a figure. So we had the data for an average carbon footprint. We then went to the carbon footprint of a digital conference, and that was crazy. Like we just basically had to come up with 3 possible estimations, because there's no one way. I think now Zoom is better in terms of knowing the type of how people join online. So you can say if they're streaming with a video, then you can calculate that that's a higher digital impact than not, for example, if they come with the camera off. But these methodologies are they're full of limitations. But the important thing, I think, is to try. We might not know. This is why we did that. We had scale. We had 3 different estimations of what the carbon footprint could be. So I really, you know, really they differed quite significantly.
And Nicole, just can I ask a question? Can you also, yeah, sorry, we're sitting next to each other, which people don't recognize. Did you also go beyond the numbers? Did you also have, because that's the step beyond the carbon footprint percentage?
So actually, one of the interesting things with that data collection around the 2019 conference, is because we were asking for the first time about the carbon footprint of people's travel, they start to think, well, actually, yeah, this is and has been for us an issue. Some people say, well, already this is a huge issue. You know, we're traveling by train. We asked people how they traveled and would travel, and many people they would like to travel by a more sustainable way, but they're coming from too far and it would take days to get there. It's far too expensive. What we do see is that, like I think we saw in this conversation today, people are, I think, I can't remember, was it Harry who said the cost, you have to make it count. So if we come together here today, it will have an environmental cost, but we have to make that count. And so then you have to have the what are we doing to then mitigate climate impact and through cultural heritage, through saving, well, of course, through saving reducing our carbon footprint, but also by promoting wider awareness and all of the things we discussed this morning. So we talked also with the climate action community. I'm sorry, are you on mute? We talked with the climate action community this morning, recently. Also, they are interested in this question around the impact of digital cultural heritage from 2 sides, from reducing the negative aspect, but also from increasing the positive impact of the sector on mitigating the crisis. Does that answer your question?
Well, for me, yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, what we see is by asking and addressing the topic, it's you are also contributing to the change that you want to see happening with, well, if you have to the definition in the impact playbook to your stakeholder, but that's like to the Europeana Network Association. By addressing it, you get people to think about it, and then you get talking about change. So that's absolutely an answer to my question. Thanks.
Super, thank you. Any other questions from the room or troubleshooting? So shoot at us. I think, is that what you said? I don't know.
Maybe a quick comment and response to Matilda's question. So this is the impact group, but yes, we are having ongoing conversations with other communities within Europeana, to like the impact community, to apply the methodology also to different research. So I think that's maybe sort of a common thread. And what Nicole just now said, we had a conversation with them 2 weeks ago, I think, or last week even. So this is ongoing conversation. So it's the fact that impact is sort of an umbrella to measure the impact through different lenses. So for whether it's the lens of, sorry, I'm looking at Matilda because she's opposite from me, sitting opposite from me, through the lens maybe of climate change, through the lens of engagement, through the lens of economic impact. Or I saw a question in the chat from Agneta from, hi Agneta, good to see you. Not see you, but to have you here, from the National Library in Denmark, also looking at the impact of the users of digital cultural heritage. So whatever, through which lens we're looking at it, the playbook can be utilized for different purposes. So that's maybe something in general. So regardless of what type of organization you work for, I see people who work for smaller or maybe grassroots organizations, more national institutes, or small, big, large, different type of, the nature doesn't define whether you can use the playbook. You can customize it to your own needs. I think that's maybe something that is good to keep in mind. Sorry.
Super. So yeah, we have a question from Orna, and I wonder, Orna, would you like to ask it in person, maybe to get to know you as well? If not, we can just answer. I'll try. Oh, sorry, some people have, yeah, the camera and some issues with the cameras. Yes, sorry. Okay, so yes, one of the, again, coming back to Micah's comment earlier about sort of, and also in response to Neil's, from output towards outcomes, so towards that more, it's basically you're moving into a more qualitative realm. So qualitative, by which we mean more to do with personal experiences, and that's exactly where you have, you can really collect that depth of information. So we're able, for example, you can have some numbers about engagement and things like this, but actually maybe actually having some interviews or a focus group with some of your some of those participants tells you so much more about their experience and also gives you feedback to improve for the next time. So yeah, absolutely. Phase 2 does tell you about, for example, best practice interview techniques. You can also find this online if you're uncomfortable to structure it like a conversation. Personally, I always find when doing data collection interviews, the more informal and the more you create an atmosphere where the other person is open to sharing, the more likely the more interesting conversations and data comes out. So you can find out some really interesting things about that depth of use. And there's another question, and I'm not sure if Agnieszka, I didn't completely understand the question. So you're interested in impact on users of digital cultural heritage. Like, which difference does it make for you, since you most often cannot compare using common pricing principles? And I'm not sure I understand the question, but I'm not sure if you're able to connect to maybe explain your perspective. And Orna, also, if I haven't answered your question, please let me know, and we'll come back to it. Agnieszka?
She's working.
Oh, you're working on something else as well. Maybe it's. Oh, sorry. Okay, that's fine. Did you understand it? No. Okay.
The pricing. I didn't understand the pricing element of it, but measuring the impact of users, engaging users with digital cultural heritage. I think that you've undertook many case studies on that subject already, right? So that's something maybe that people would be inspired by reading. Maybe some of the case studies that Europeana has undertaken, looking through different lenses as an inspiration. I think to see, okay, maybe there are elements in there that are really valuable to your organization. I saw some people from EXARC are here, so more of a community-driven archaeology organization. So I'm thinking about the work, the work that you did with a case study on 1914-18, the First World War project, looking at the value of that for learning purposes. So maybe there's connections to be made to research that Europeana has undertaken already based on some projects that of elements are of value to your specific organization. Maybe not in its entirety, but maybe subsets of it. That's
Agnieszka, you are also, I see your video is on. I saw you on.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Hi. Sorry. Well, I only meant that often when you are trying to get funding for things or get something into your organization's politics, you are asked what is the outcome and how much is it going to cost, what is the budgets and things like that. So I just mean much of the outcome is perhaps what you yourself in person get out of the using of cultural heritage, what you in your mind will be able to process of experiences and things like that, and that is quite often difficult to tell your organization how much does it cost for me to get there. So that was that kind of meaning I was trying to post.
So if I understand, it's about the planning to reach the impact you want to have, or
exactly. So you have to decide that you wish to get some outcome when you're using the Impact Playbook already before you take it into account. So
Mhm.
yeah, you're not
Yeah.
just doing it for the fun of it, so to speak. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry, I think my connection.
But maybe in addition also that you have different. Oh, sure. Can you hear me? Oh, I'm so sure. Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me? Yes. Oh yeah, okay, people say yes. Maybe in addition to what Agnete was saying, also being able to offer different sort of impact, how do you say it? Yeah, I don't want to say KPIs, but different mechanism of measuring our societal impact in a different way. Like this is now sort of more an economic question, but also in reporting back maybe to our ministries or to in terms of, okay, what are we reporting back on? What are we asked to report back on? So maybe it's also a mechanism to not just do it, undertake it for the fun of it, but to try it out. And maybe there's additional value in things that we haven't measured or reported on very proactively before, because we haven't measured it conscientiously over the course of time. And then it becomes something that becomes of importance because we do it regularly. Maybe there's also an element of that in that you can give it a try, not for fun, but to think strategically about what's the best way of utilizing this to bring across important element of our role as heritage institutions in society, for example. I think there might also be an element in there that we sort of also, maybe if we test it out as people doing the work, then we can also convince others that it is also important for the wider organization.
I think also I have two things to add to that, and I welcome anyone else in the room and anyone else also in the on the online chat to come in. And thank you for the question. One thing which came to mind, which I think was when we started talking about social impact and outcomes, was social return on investment, which is a methodology which it is quite intensive to apply. I would recommend getting sort of external expertise. But social return on investment does help you to quantify in an economic way the social return, the social outcomes, the more qualitative returns in an economic way, basically. So this can be very effective when you take to funders. Personally, I think it can be a little bit misleading, but that's fine. Sometimes it can help you get the job done, and it also helps you learn. It's so stakeholder, you have to work a lot with your stakeholders to validate the methodology. So actually even that process of going through the application of the methodology can be very helpful. And then you might learn that actually you need to do some more interviews, and actually, okay, so, you know, you get €2 back in social outcome, but actually what does that look like for, if you're talking about an educational project, what does that look like for the pupils, for example? Like, what does that look like in the next year of their education, which you will never get from a number of €2 return on investment. And the second thing I was going to say also is that in this like change pathway tool we have in phase 1, you know, we start to map out the type of changes we think happen in society and for our users, but you always have to test that. It may be that you come back and you say, actually, this change isn't happening. We see something completely different, or we see actually very limited impacts, or we really need to strengthen this. We see some bits of it, but actually we really need to strengthen this in our activities. So this whole planning of the impact you want to have also makes, you know, you can go to your management and say, this is the impact you're going to have, but you can't guarantee that, you know. So it's always this learning process. So this is why the playbook is this continual cycle. It keeps going round in 4 phases. It's like an iterative circle. You evaluate at the end to improve going forward. So you learn more about your stakeholders as you go through. I'm going to stop talking and ask if there are any more questions. And if that was clear, I'm not sure if it was.
Yeah, I'll maybe jump in here just to keep the conversation going. I'm Reinhard Hotzenberg. I'm from South Africa. I work in one of the big repositories in South Africa. I must be honest, I haven't really looked at the playbook, so I was very reluctant on talking, but we've got quite a unique situation here because not everything in South Africa is really logic driven. But I work in the oral history unit. We're the only dedicated unit in South Africa. We've been going on for more than a decade. And we've started generating so much data, but that's never been made available. But now how it ties up in Europe, and that was one of the questions I actually had earlier, is even with our normal records that we've got, because of the massive footprint that Europe had in our past, that sort of explains a part of Europe's history. And with these oral history conversations that we've got, we record up to 30 hours a week. So we've got hundreds of thousands of hours of these conversations. There's always this element coming up from our colonization past and that. So I think that's very important, how it feeds back into Europeana, not just our normal records, but these very personal and emotional conversations. So yeah, we're just basically here to learn and see how we can maybe contribute in this institutional memory of Europe. Thank you.
It's a really important topic to bring up. It's something we're working through, and I don't think anyone's found solutions to how we present Europe's very complicated and challenging history. I think the playbook, in a way, so we have this sort of way of thinking through the change you want to see. It could be a way of sort of structuring the type of change you think your organization wants to affect on the management of these sort of these records, on how they're perceived. You know, think about what the impact you want, what story do you want these oral histories to tell, and what's the impact through publishing them, of making them available. What is the impact you want to have? And I think we're finding that people are more open to having difficult, on a different level, people are more open to having difficult conversations about the past. And I think, you know, when we think about social impact, I think and social justice, it's absolutely something that we have to start addressing in terms of our past impact, and also future impact, and future, like, reparations, and making everything a little bit better in the future. I wonder if, I'm still looking at my colleague Maggie, who's working, my colleague Marika would be the best one to talk, I think, about our work on the decolonization or decolonialization of our own activities. Maggie, do you have anything to add, or shall I just, we can put you in touch with our colleagues in Europeana if you'd like. If you email impact at, yeah, no,
that will be brilliant.
If anyone emails impact@europeana.eu, or that's my email as well, we will try and put you in touch with the right people as well. But I think one of our key goals is to use the impact framework and conversations like this for having a positive impact and contributing towards better social justice. So yeah, we're trying to do what we can, and if it's not relevant, we'll try and change it. Yeah, so Micah, this could be a very important use case, questions to map on the change pathway and ideate, yes, the activities that address the change you want to attribute to. So using this thing, I'll also send you a copy of this and the playbook. Yeah, this can help think through the change you want to have through those collections. Thank you so much for that question, and thank you for joining. Thanks everyone for joining. Any more questions? We have 15 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yes.
Can you see me? I should have the video on.
Oh yes, I can see you. There we go. Sorry, I have a screen.
Yeah.
Of, camera. Yeah.
And hello from Helsinki. And my initial question was about open cultural data and the nature of free archives and open data, and our ability to track it like completely. So we have just like these glimpses into use cases. But I think you already discussed this topic by maybe the answer is to contact the users we know and maybe open the discussion and the interview process through that, and maybe gain more universal info through those, and maybe to see the larger picture. And but I had another idea, or just a thought, or more like a comment. There's been, especially in the field of art museums, there's this talk about NFT and the possible income that could be created with it. And I think this has a tangent or link to the earlier discussion about apps, because the funding funding comes to these new technologies from commercial side and from we're a municipal, we're the like a service of City of Helsinki, so we have some interest in funding experiments or experimental prototypes or testing these new technologies. So I think the train already has a destination to use the same metaphor, even though we're not sure if we want to go there. So NFT is one of these so-called metaphorical trains now, and I think if we really assess the impact of, I think it would mean closing collections and bringing something that could be in public domain back to commercial domain. And this is just a thought that maybe this playbook or these tools that it provides, thanks for introducing them to me. I have to say I wasn't aware of those. They look really, really great, and I'm going to put them into use. But they could be one tool to, maybe a slow one, but one tool to assess if government-run organization or a municipal organization should pursue NFTs, and what are the actual impacts of doing that, socially, economically, etc. So, thanks. Just a comment.
Yeah. No, I think no one did a risk assessment when NFTs came along. I don't think we had a choice. I think that's an absolutely important question. We hear all the time about, and this is why economic impact is also part of the strategic pathways, also another resource in the Impact Playbook, our strategic perspectives. It's without money, institutions can't keep running. This is the reality. And there are so many concerns about opening up content because some income is gained from that somehow, from commercializing in some ways. There are thankfully laws in place that mean public domain work should not go back into being taken away from everyone. We should hopefully rely on them and hope nothing changes, and that those laws continue to promote open access to that content which is in the public domain, and encourage as much possible to be put into the public domain as well, where there are choices. I think you could the argument, I think, for NFTs versus no NFTs would be really interesting to work on in terms of this sort of strategic perspectives. We could also talk about the climate. You could also talk about the organizational impacts, what that means on even motivation for colleagues whose preservation work is no longer for the public, it's for private gain of a very small number of people. There's a lot of different ways of articulating, and these are assumptions on my part, by the way, but there's a number of ways to think through what this potential impact could be. There are, for example, I'm just thinking of a very good recent economic impact of digitization report, which came from the National History Museum in London, which showed that billions of their collections can generate billions in just several areas of research over the next number of years. I can send the link also in the chat in a second. So there are, there's maybe your question comes back to that we should be continuing to really back up that argument for that push for open data as much as possible, with as much evidence as possible, that we maybe should be more coherent in the narrative. Maybe that I'm hearing a need that actually we need to be more coherent in how we're strengthening that message. I shared a link to a blog I wrote in 2018, I think, about 10 reasons why you should publish your data on openly, which had some research up until 2018. There's so much more research since, and this blog hasn't been updated. But yeah, that's maybe a really good need, that when people get really attracted by new shiny things and opportunities, and they should be explored, but it's about a risk assessment as well, I think, especially when it's something that's the public interest. Also, I was in the museum 2 weeks ago, so I was in your museum. It's really good. So thanks. Sorry.
Nice to hear that.
Great time. Anyway, sorry. I said this would be very informal, so thank you for. I had one other question about open data, which is the challenge. A response to your question about. Oh, can Sorry, no drawing. The response to the challenge of understanding the impact for those users when, for example, someone's using your API or someone's just on your website and you actually have no way of contacting them. That's really hard. And that's one of the challenges we have here in Europeana. That, you know, we have to use the mechanisms we have, which might be social media, and we're going to try and do some sort of social media scraping and more sort of qualitative analysis of that. But that's only a certain number of people responding. It's really hard to tell the impact when you don't have access to people, you know. So there's, you know, but we have pop-ups, for example, there's ways of trying to reach people when they are interacting with your content. But, you know, you do let go of some of things when you make things open, and that's a big step. And yeah,
and it's its own discussion. When people we have this Finna aggregator in Finland, this national, you're probably all aware of that, and at least the European people. And the main problem is that we have some interactive, like commenting, and some interactive elements in Finna with the objects, but nobody actually uses them. They take the images or the data away, and they use it in their own channels. It's a Facebook group, or it's a message board, and they do the conversation there and the interaction. And if we as an institution go there, I think we would we just can't go there as an institution and join the discussion, so to say. But this is another discussion. But it's a part of the ways of approaching the communities that use the cultural data. And we have mostly observed, but not taken part, because I feel that they feel that they have this safe community with each other. And if the organization as an authority comes in there without asking, without permission, I think it's not okay, or there's problems.
I think that's also a really that's a really well articulated way of, a really good example of how you have to recognize and respect your audiences as well, and not over survey or infringe on their own, you know, their own spaces. I think that's a really nice example of how you explained that. I had something came up, but I can't remember what it is. If I remember, I will put it in the chat. But thank you so much for the question. Please do, anyone also in here today, you have the email addresses here, and we do have a new resource. I'm looking to my right. We have a new resource which will be coming out in the new year. So we do hope this will be make Impact even easier for everyone. So if you're not already part of the network, the Europeana Network Association, you can join, and we will keep you up to date with everything. I'll just share the link to join, and then you can become part of the Impact community, and then we will make sure you get every single update that you need. Any other questions in the room? We have 7 minutes left.
Hi, I have a question. I'm Kelly Haasjager. I'm working at the Netherlands Institute for Sound and Vision. It's just a quick one, and I hope I also didn't miss it in our earlier discussion about environmental impact, but I was taking a look at the strategic perspectives layout, and also the phase 1 book in general, and I was wondering what guidance there is for where to include environmental impact in people's assessments, or if it's the intention for it to be a more overarching issue.
That is an amazingly timely question. Thank you so much. It's a perfect question and a great lead in. The strategic perspectives tool, I've had a copy on my desk at home with an extra line for the environment, and I just haven't managed to get anyone to design it in a nicer way to have impact as part of that. And in phase 2, we are revising phase 2 as well, and we're working with the climate action community in Europeana to basically embed the climate throughout. So this is something which is coming in the resource, which we hope will be launched in the new year. It's absolutely about embedding climate in all of our thinking, and the fact that our actions should all be contributing towards a better, more sustainable future. And so absolutely that's it's coming in there. So you absolutely spotted that it's not there yet. In this revised, and if anybody would like to see the revision of phase 2, please email me. I'm happy to send it. It's a bit of a mess, but you can see it and have a look and give me any of your feedback. I'm very welcome. It will be made into a new output in the new year. So if anybody's interested, just email and I can send you a copy. It's not for sharing, but it is something you can use if it's helpful. So we have some of the methodologies I mentioned about measuring our own like travel carbon footprint, are some of our findings in there as well. So yeah, hopefully that's and welcome to Sound of Vision. We work very closely, and one of your colleagues is in front of me. Nice to meet you.
Likewise, thanks, Nicole.
So any final questions? From the room, any final questions? Final thoughts? No?
Well, this would be my answer to first question about motivation, but then I was thinking, why did I start to think about impact? And it's very not like how to change the world. It was because we have some great projects that were financed, that Ministry of Culture gave us great money and some time. And as you know, in this world, you need a lot of money. So we knew that our project was good, but we didn't have a very good proof. So it's the new time. We need to think about. So sorry. We need to think about how to prove, how to show to those who are giving us money that we are making a change. It's not just about we know we are great, but so that was my motivation. So that's it. Comment.
Sorry, I had a technical malfunction at that point, and my headphones just completely stopped working. I'm so sorry.
So to repeat.
I'm so sorry. But does anybody in the room want to respond who heard? Actually, that's maybe I'll stop talking.
Micah just put in the chat, small baby steps are important, so I'm replicating that. But I think that's great in realizing that you don't have, well, it's not great that you don't realize how to prove it, but at the same time realizing that you have to make a good report or being able to convey the impact of your actions that you know are of value. So I think that is a really realization that that's what it takes to be able to convey that message in an efficient way and not being able to you always have to repeat yourself and think, but this is a really good project. No, here's the okay.
Okay. Actually, that's what this playbook is perfect, because it gives you the structure. It's not just the pieces that you give. It gives you a story. It gives you the change pathway. It's really, really powerful tool, actually, because you have a story, you have data, you have indicators, you have everything. So it's not just we have proofs. We have some, I mean, everybody has some proofs, but to make a big picture with those proofs, this playbook is really great. This is a commercial.
No, but it's also a conversation piece. You know, it's just what we said, starting the conversation and having the same language to talk about it. That's so important because because impact can be interpreted in so many ways. So if you have this one concept and then start a conversation, you're taking, well, I'm saying small baby steps, so actually you're taking a major step to get the conversation about impact going. So great, yeah. So was that the final comment then?
I think that was the final comment. That was really fantastic. I think on top, baby steps, everyone. And absolutely about the playbook was first created to try and support this shared language, talking about impact in the same way, creating a shared conversation about the impact of our sector, of digital heritage, of cultural heritage. And we're not there yet. We still have a lot to do, but we're working on it, and we're working together. And the more people who are joining us along the way, the more strong this conversation will be, the more stronger our narrative about the impact of our sector, and not just the narrative, also the proof as well. With that, I'd like to say thank you to absolutely everyone who joined us online, including probably our youngest guest with Niels, to Baby Steps. We also had a baby on board today. So thank you all so much. You know how to continue our conversation with us. You have the email addresses here. Join the network and be part of our community. We will have a number of events, potentially even Impact Month next year. Everything will be shared. I'm now committing myself to this. If I say on an event, it's happening. So we will share information about this. We'll continue the conversation then. We'll share with you the resources we're developing to make it even easier to have that conversation with your colleagues and to start putting impact assessment and design into practice. We will see you soon, I hope. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful afternoon. And we will hopefully see you at other parts of Europeana 2022. Please do use social media, like Maggie has just said. Europeana 2022 is your hashtag. Thank you and take care, everyone. Bye.